previous work that was done and had a chance to review that. So I think the purpose of today's meeting was really to just kind of discuss those reports, but specifically go over the zones and if we think the committee has any recommended changes to those four forest zones for the upcoming reappraisal cycle so that when we start doing those stumpage value calculations, we can move any counties that the count or that the committee sees fit to move into a different zone and account for that in those stumpage value calculations for the next reappraisal cycle that will be presented to the committee in their next meeting next spring. So as long as everyone was able to receive those reports from Dr. Jackson and had a chance to review them.
I was able to get a hold of Mr. McKenzie and I re-forwarded him the Zoom information, so hopefully he'll be hopping on shortly.
Then Bill or Amanda, do one of you want to pull up the forest zone map? I guess for the members that are present, did anyone have any questions on the information contained in those reports that Dr. Jackson had done previously on kind of the thought process and methodology behind how counties were initially assigned to those four forest zones, and then the small tweaks that he made from the original zone? I think there's been a few counties that have moved zones from what was originally prepared, but are there just any general questions on the methodology that Dr. Jackson used in establishing these zones initially?
This is Jane Bryce. I have no questions.
Okay. Morning, Paul.
I really apologize. I don't know where that invite went, but I'm here now. Sorry.
Oh, no, no problem. So it looks like we do now have five of the nine members present at least, so we do have a quorum. Again, kind of just the focus of this meeting was we had sent out at the request and as discussed during the last meeting, those reports that Dr. Jackson had put together kind of with the methodology of how the forest zones were established and how counties were assigned. And really, again, the purpose of this meeting was just kind of to review those current zones, see if anyone had any questions on the methodology that Dr. Jackson employed, and then see if the committee had any recommendations for potential reassigning of counties to particular zones so that, again, when we go to do those stumpage value calculations for the upcoming cycle, we can account for those adjustments in those calculations. So we kind of discussed it. Doesn't sound like anyone had any questions on after reviewing Dr. Jackson's report. So really just open to discussion on any potential recommended changes to those county assignments to those 4 zones.
Hey Bryce, I wanted to make sure this is Scott Mendenhall, the Deputy Director. And was there an initial meeting? There was one this summer, and was it fully attended by? And my point is that have the new members been introduced to the rest of the crew here? That
Yeah,
already
we
happened.
did
Okay, so
our initial
I guess
meeting about a
thank you
month
for
ago.
that. I wanted to just say that. I just wanted to say thank you to the members of this committee. There was a lot of effort went into on an interim basis a couple of years ago. Much improved process, brought much more predictability to this taxation process. We brought in-house the some of the analysis with our tax policy and research, saved some money in doing that. But I guess I just don't want to uh, miss on the opportunity to acknowledge the time and the volunteer effort that members of this committee put into this, and it is very important. We take it serious. We rely on your input, and so I just wanted to see that on behalf of Director Beatty and myself. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Thanks for the opportunity. We did have that initial meeting back in, I don't know, was it September maybe, Bryce? Maybe October, I don't remember which. So appreciate that when we got a good kind of a foundation, I think, for the members on the committee. And so back to your point, Bryce, on respect to the zones, the issue that might force us or ask us to consider, reestablishing the zones was, structural changes in our forest products infrastructure, and specifically with respect to log markets and in the loss of the Sealy Lake Mill, Pierpont Mountain Lumber. But I'm not sure that really requires us to change zones from my perspective. Especially, the zones that would likely be changed would be, zone 3, and potentially zone 2. But in reality, we still have a relatively robust market for most species. Obviously, ponderosa pine is the challenge, but most species of logs pretty well represented by the existing zones. So, be glad to hear other people's perspectives on that. But yeah, I don't at this point in time see a compelling reason to change zones.
Okay, thanks. Any other of the committee members have any different thoughts on the matter?
So Bryce, this is Jane. I don't have any different thoughts than Paul. I took a look at the zones. I was a forester in zone 3. I feel like there's no need to really modify the zones at this point. I don't have any reason to do that.
Okay,
Yeah, it's been interesting. We've seen some other markets kind of fill in the gap left by the pyramid mill, both from the north and from the west. And so you can look at the bidding activity on the state sales, which you guys will be looking at pretty soon. You'll see that there's been no drop off in activity in those areas that's directly attributable to the loss of pyramid, I don't think.
great. Thanks for that input. So it doesn't sound like there's any needed adjustments. I know that was the main focus of getting back together here for this meeting. Paul or committee members, do you have anything else you want to discuss at this point? Want to be respectful of everyone's time and
This is Nancy Mahaffey, and I was wondering, I guess because of the ponderosa issue, that they're shipping those logs a long distance. But I would think that cost would be washed into the figuring that shipping cost within the price of the stumpage and some of the calculations that are done. So it wouldn't be affected in the zones. Am I correct on that?
I'll jump in here. This is Jared Eisen from the Tax Plan Research. We run the model. Yes, I would say the shipping costs are captured elsewhere in the model. It is also part of what you consider with the zones. I think the main point of the zones is to make sure that similar markets and the counties that have similar markets are grouped together in the same zone. Like for example, is Lewis and Clark County more similar to like Powell, Missoula, Granite County, or more similar to the markets in Choteau and Gallatin and Marr counties, right? Because yeah, the all of the costs are captured in the model elsewhere.
Okay, I thought so. So thanks for the clarification.
So Jared, just something to keep an eye out as you're looking at your data sets. The DNRC has actually done something new, and they've broken ponderosa pine out as a separate stumpage rate. And so you'll have saw logs of all species, and then you have a ponderosa pine saw log with a separate stumpage rate. I think that is reflective of the very limited market for ponderosa pine. So that's something that will be interesting as we get into the valuations of the different zones and different proportions of species. The value of ponderosa pine has dropped significantly, mostly due to the distance to market. And so it just kind of be looking at that probably over the last 1 year that the DNRC has been doing that as a separate stumpage item, but that's kind of a new revelation, I guess, within the stumpage market that could be good or bad as far as make your job a little more difficult and figuring out how to handle it, but breaking it out at least give you some information.
Okay, good to know. Thanks for, yeah, hopefully, I don't think it'll take too much updating to the model to make sure that's in there because ponderosa pine was already separated out. I'll make sure that that's
Sure.
taken care of. Thanks for letting me know.
I guess the only other thing I would request, maybe this is to Amanda or the department, when we have a meeting like this, could you actually send an invite? Because I went back and finally found the link, but it was buried in like a PDF document. And so I'm not sure if that's maybe why we don't have as many people on this call because we might have missed it. So just kind of a note to self on the invite so we can make sure we get a broad notice of that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Paul. I'm sorry about the confusion and it getting buried down in there.
Yeah, no, that's my problem, not yours, but we can make our lives a little bit easier because we're not always the best. So, well, I think that was the main topic for this meeting today, right, Bryce?
Yep, unless you guys have anything else you want to talk about, again, we want to be mindful and respectful of everyone's time. So if there is nothing else, I think what we'll do is we'll just kind of type up a brief summary recap of this meeting saying, hey, the members present, who those were, recommended no changes to the zones at this time. Give those other four members who weren't present an opportunity to provide any input if they feel differently, and then kind of just proceed with keeping things status quo as far as the zones are concerned as we go into developing the stumpage values for next cycle. Again, meet sometime early spring, late spring, early summer, present those updated stumpage values, and then again, probably a more robust conversation of reviewing the costs and everything to see if that looks appropriate and if maybe some further adjustments need to be considered for the ponderosa pine issue.
Hey, Bryce, if I could, I know we've got a little bit of time and I don't want to go off on a tangent too long, but I wanted to, just from a situational awareness standpoint for the members on this committee, you probably have seen and read that there's a lot going on in property tax with the new laws that passed in the last session, and we're busy implementing those. And it's a sort of a bifurcated law. There was a 2025 impact, and then there's the 2026 impacts that will happen. And I guess it's important for forest owners to realize that in a general sense, these laws gave lower rates to primary residents, taxpayers. That means if you're in Montana and you live in your place for 7 months, you get in going forward and a lower rate, and also long-term rentals. Those were prioritized for preferential rates. Depending on the local tax base, in order to do that, if you think about a tax base being like a balloon, you compress and and lower, select someone in that tax base, a tax class, to lower their rates. That comes at the expense of increased rates for everybody else in that the other types of tax classes. Now, forest land taxation is fairly low in a comparative way across the state, but we've not done a deep dive into those impacts. But I do know that there will be some impacts resulting from the shifting within a tax base onto commercial, onto short-term rentals, onto ag land, and onto forest land. And I think we'd be remiss not to inform this committee about that at some basic level. And I don't know, we've got a couple of pros on here, Robin and Bryce, that you could speak more to that, or perhaps Jared, but I thought it would be good for forest owners to realize that there's that impact that's coming as a result of shifting tax rates within classes.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And again, that's primarily from the local level and how 1510-420 works, that allows them to collect the same amount of revenue. So when taxable values decrease because of rates cuts, mills will typically float upward. So that's where that shifting occurs. And like Scott was saying, that it's going to vary greatly across the state, but there are the possibility that those mills floating upward to account for the decrease in taxable value from the tiered rate structure on residential and commercial property could shift a portion of that burden onto forest land owners because of the increased mills that will get applied against the value of their property.
Jared, I have a question. Some of the analysis that Tax Policy and Research have done has by tax class some of these shifts by county. Is that in a prepared way that at some point we could share with this committee?
I don't think we have it. We don't have tax changes by tax class yet because the mills just came in recently. We could probably get taxable value changes. We don't have it together. Like we haven't done any analysis specifically for forest land, especially. But yeah, we can put something together. And I'll also say that non-commercial forest landowners, if they live on their primary home, the offsetting their residential taxes will go down, which might offset any increase that they see in their land. It just kind of depends on what's going on locally. But they could potentially still see lower taxes, even with some shifting onto the land if their residential goes down. But yeah, we can get some. We'll look at. I'll talk with Eric, and we'll see if we can get some Class 10 specific stuff together.
Is there interest in seeing that kind of information? Would you benefit as a committee member to seeing if we were able to put that together, county by county analysis of the shifts and changes as a result of these laws between tax classes? Would you like to see that?
God, I think that'd be really good, and I think you'll get asked that question, coming into the next legislative session anyway. So yeah, if you guys do that analysis and can share that, I'm sure that'd be very informational for us.
Thanks for letting me butt into the agenda with that item, but I just thought if I were one of you, I might like to see that. So.
Yeah, well, we leave it up to you, Scott, to bring the good news.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Alrighty. Nobody else?
I think, again, thank you all for taking the time to meet with us. And again, we'll send out a short little recap, just in case those 4 members that weren't able to attend have any input they want to provide. And then just plan on proceeding with no changes to the forest zone as we go into the stumpage updated calculations for next cycle.
Sounds good. Thanks, Bryce. Thanks for the
everyone.
call, Amanda. I appreciate it. And we'll see you guys after the first of the year.
Happy holidays.
Take care.